right, welcome to the Rose 777 channel, and I'm here with Crow today again. We are going to be talking about some latest solar telescope work and the concept of the age of the machine based on a new playlist that I created. And then I also was looking back through Crow's YouTube channel from way back in the day and found a cool clip that hopefully he's okay with us sharing because I screen recorded from his YouTube channel. So those are the plans I had for today. I'm really excited to get Crow's take on some of the quotes from previous episodes that I put together. And so how's it going, Crow? Thanks for showing up today to be Crow.
All good. I've been working in the garden all day and I have everything planted. It's kind of late season this year around.
You know what's weird is I keep track of all of the different plants in my backyard every single spring, and I take note of what day certain things bloom. Like there's a certain flower, and I'm like, okay, this year was April 12th, this year was April 16th, and there's this one tree that's, I guess, considered invasive, and they just grow everywhere, and it starts to have this, yellow-looking seed protrusion, and it hasn't happened yet. And last year it was May 6th. So it's like everything's kind of happening later down here in Louisiana this year.
I actually love that. I used to do a similar thing. There's no lie in nature. And I have often commiserated about how we keep time now. There have been plenty of things that have happened recently where people had an old analog clock around and it was not jiving with all the digital systems that we use. So, yeah, interesting times.
So you've been sharing some new images, still images of the sun with me recently, and I absolutely love them. Totally blown away. Should we go ahead and give people a little peek at some of the latest images that you've created?
Yeah, I've been going nonstop since last year in March when I first started filming with the big solar telescope and getting into it seriously. And I have been trying to up my game as I go along. Filming the sun is really difficult to say the least, but the processing is typically done by most people one way. And I think a lot of people that are technical don't really have skills with images and video. So I've been really trying to up my game here.
Yeah, look at this one right here. If I'm not mistaken, correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong about this, but the prominence that we're looking at here, if you were doing an animation of this moment, it would kind of look like a tornado, right? Is that the day? Is that a different day where it had a tornado effect, but not the day when the scene was bad?
No, you're spot on. On the looping prom to the right of it, there's like a little bubble prominence, but that big thick part of it is a tornado. It turns into a tornado. But unfortunately, I was going for a 3-hour animation on this, and I managed to get close to an hour due to chemtrails. I just couldn't focus anymore.
Well, it looks magnificent as a still, and even though you're disappointed with how the animation came out on the video that you have on the website, it looks so cool, and it's very fortunate that you captured that. Here's another still image that you just sent me, and wow, I love your choices with, I guess, I don't know if you were like boosting up the contrast, but the surface detail looks so interesting, and you could see that there's one prominence that looks like the famous double looping prominence clip that I shared our last live stream, and then next to it, it's like things are happening closer to the surface, but they still seem to be like working together, if that makes sense. What do you have to say about this one?
So when people look at the images, you can know a few things just by a glance. Like you'll notice the sunspots are white. That means I inverted it. And almost all solar guys do that. And the reason is if you invert the image, it gives you a lot more contrast and a lot more of a 3D feel. If you look at an image and the sunspots are black, it hasn't been inverted. And actually, a lot of the time I do both. I do one way and one the other. And almost always the inverted one looks best. But in, what was it, the 15th member video that I just put up on the site, I show how I open up a curves panel, and on the left, so I shoot in black and white. On the left of the curve is all the white data, on the right is all the black data, then there's everything in between. So what you can do, and you're not adding or changing anything, you're simply boosting a level of black or white. And in this case, that's exactly what I did. I fine-tuned the contrast to get as much a 3D look and feel as I could.
Well, I love it. And so now we're going to look at the ones where you asked me what I thought you should focus on. And I said, please, more close up looks at sunspots. So this is one that you sent. Oh my goodness. I love this one. It's just a little bit different than the other cool things we've seen because you have like the tunnel like aspect where it feels like you're looking through the shell or surface of whatever the sun is. And then you've got the filaments, but then wherever it's white, it almost looks like spider webs or some kind of fibrous material. What do you think's going on here?
So when you're filming the sun with a big telescope, and my telescope is very big, if the seeing is bad, and for the layperson, that's the waviness, it looks like heat shimmer almost, what they call seeing. You're fighting that to get good resolution. One of the ways you do that is with the highest frame rate you can manage. And the other thing is the quickest shutter speed. So I try to go for 0.4 of a second. And when you get lucky and you get a good shot in between the seeing, you get resolution down to this level. It also depends on the camera, but this, there's not a lot of images that I've made with this much resolution.
Yeah, you're getting so much better and better with processing the data that you're capturing. It's amazing. Here's the next one of multiple sunspots.
So this is typically what you get. And right off the bat, you can tell that it has not been inverted. And so you notice right away, it doesn't feel as three-dimensional as it does when I invert it. And that's simply about contrast.
All right. And then here's another view. And then here's another view. So now we've got this prominence plus a sunspot and the surface detail.
So on any given filming day, when I see a sunspot that starts to look like that, I really want to zero in on it and try to capture for 3 hours, because that's when you might get lucky and get like an ejection. I've filmed it a couple times, and you just mostly got to be lucky to do it. But I really like this image. And one of the things I did is when I was pulling the curves, it occurred to me that when I look at the sun in the daytime, it's in a blue sky. So I tried to incorporate some blue by pulling the curves.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And then here we have the bottom of the sun with more prominences. That looks awesome. And then we have another top view. That's actually a still from what you are showing in video 15. If we were gonna do like a shoot the moon or shoot the sun sequel to shoot the moon, where we talk about your solar work, I feel like the video 15, all of the information in that would be perfect to include in the film, because you're really demonstrating how you're capturing the data to create this still image and then also the animations.
Yeah, everyone should try to catch the member solar video 15, the last one up, because so many people out in the world are so used to being lied to that they started to say that these images I'm creating are fake and that they're NASA specials. And so in that video 15, I show you exactly what it looks like and how I do it, so that there can be no confusion and you can correct folks if they're misguided. It's hard to blame anyone these days when almost everything you hear is not truthful.
Yeah, so true. Okay, so that's it for the new solar work, and just mentioning that there's now 15 solar investigation videos on the website that everyone should check out, so you could see the evolution of Crrow's progress from when he first got that telescope set up and figuring out how to deal with all of the hardware and the software till today when he's producing these amazing animations and still images. So now to the topic of the day, which is the playlist I created. Let me just show it to you. I haven't even shown it to you.
Okay.
This is the playlist. It's called The Age of the Machine. And the thing is that there's been so many episodes. It's just so overwhelming for people if they want to dive into a specific topic because of your strategy of many times making the titles have nothing to do with the contents of the episode. So my effort to create these playlists is just an easy way for people to go from the beginning to the end of a certain topic. So this idea here includes episode 66, 83, 165, 178, 497, 511, and 623. Now that seems like a lot, but honestly, this playlist could have like 30 episodes on it. And in fact, 165 has a part 2 and so does 623. But I just felt like if people listen to these 7 episodes, it would really demonstrate the message that you've been trying to impart to people, your perspective of what's been going on ever since you started the podcast in 2016. And so, like the idea behind, I think I put the core concerns that I felt this playlist represent is that there's the idea of the loss of our freedom, the erasure of nature, and this emergence of a new coded reality, which is engineered to replace organic life. You know, the artificial is displacing the natural in the external world, but also in human thought and perception and spirituality. And you've been saying this since the beginning, since all the way back when episode 66 came out, when you would talk about ideas related to modern AI, surveillance systems, media illusions, and then you're always talking about hypermaterialism. And so it's just showing how the core problem here, which is both we can observe it in the physical, but there's a spiritual thing happening where we're trying to be separated from nature. And so that's what I feel like those 7 episodes represent. And in episode 66, you really gave an early warning of what was to come. So I just thought would throw up on the screen. First of all, this is the episode image, episode 66. And then here are some quotes that you said during episode 66, which was such a long time ago. I have it written when it came out. That one was July 31st of 2017. And you said, free speech is being rewritten by entities that don't even live or breathe. They're legal fictions with more rights than you. And I remember that was shortly after we were talking about the whole idea of the straw man identity. So that was what was in your mind at the time. So do you want to expand on that quote from you that you said from episode 66?
Well, in a way, what I was talking about back then has come to pass. We're doing it now. And one of the recent examples I noticed, I think I saw it a couple days ago, is Netflix is playing one of the Robin Hoods. I think it's the Russell Crowe one. And they removed the opening message in that movie that had to do with heroes arising in a time of tyranny. There's another movie where they pulled a quote from, I think it was Psalm, and this is done on the fly by AI and other things. And this is the problem with the digital world. And this is why books are valuable, and this is why analog things are valuable. We have now reached a point where on the fly, they have so much control over media, they can edit or alter anything being delivered. And that is a sinister, sinister thing, to be blunt about it.
Yeah, absolutely. To be blunt about it, for sure. Now we have another quote from episode 66. Digital spaces are being crafted where truth can't go, and no one even sees the bars on the cage. And then your freedom of expression now runs through the terms of service of a corporation that doesn't know your name. I just feel like these are really important things that you said. And this was before your YouTube channel was even taken down. This was over a year before. And people, and it sounds so obvious now. It's like, wow, Captain Obvious quotes, right? But this was from so many years ago, and nobody was taking the censorship and the loss of free speech seriously back then.
We were there. We were kind of there. We were very nearly there when I said some of these things. But now, I mean, look at the way that we run the podcast. And I know people get frustrated, and I apologize for it, but we do what I'm about to explain to survive. The titles. Well, let me back up a minute. I read this thing from an insider who worked in a big digital situation, and he showed me some numbers on how censorship is derived. And a big part of it is from descriptions and titles. There's much more to it, like who you are and who comes to your channel. It draws a map, but that title and that description are probably the lion's share of instantaneous censorship. And so, what I know, my titles often don't match what the episode is about. And almost all descriptions may touch on it or hint towards it or play off it, but it's really diverting as much as it can. And people get frustrated because they want to look for something and it's not easy to find because they're used to saying, oh, this was in the title or that. So unfortunately, that's what we've done to survive censorship. And luckily you're around and people can ask you, and that you've provided many ways to find the episodes that are not so easily derived from the titles.
It used to be a lot easier, but now that there's so many episodes and things have evolved over time where you've gone into certain topics into more detail, that's how I think that you made the right decision. I'm glad that you are like that and that you are mysterious with your titles and vague with your descriptions, because now we have the playlists and we can just make sure people are aware of those, because you can access the playlists from the homepage. And so this playlist that we're talking right now is already there. If you go to the homepage and you click on playlists, you will see the Age of the Machine playlist. And I also just put it into the chat a bunch of times so people could click on that and save that. So that's one way that we can get the best of both worlds. But let's move on to episode 83, which is the next. And then when was that one released? That was February 13th, 2018. And that's funny because I'm reminded of that month, because remember you were saying that you were looking for a Wired magazine cover that had to do with censorship. And the one that I could find was from February 2018 when you were synchronistically
I
doing this
can't
episode.
find it anywhere. I think it may have gone down the memory hole.
Yeah, possibly. Or maybe it's Mendelard. I'm kidding.
Hard to know.
Yeah. Okay, so in this episode, that was pretty much when this was like the official episode where you were addressing the idea of the blockchain, because it was like this new idea and people were like, oh, yay for the blockchain. It's a symbol of freedom. And you were like, oh, hell no, pun intended. And so the name of that episode was The Coming 5G Networks and AI, The Point of No Natural Return. So that was an accurate title, at least. I'm not sure it flies on YouTube, but I have to check and see if that was one of the ones that went down. But here are some quotes from that one. Oh, I should have kept track of which ones I've clicked on. Okay, here we go. What do you call a world where everything is a signal and nothing's alive? We're standing at the doorstep of a fully synthetic realm that mimics life but holds no truth. When everything's running on frequency, you better ask, who's tuning the dial? And I'm telling you, Crow, that way back when, during episode 83, I wasn't quite sure what you meant by you better ask who's tuning the dial. But now in 2025, after everything we've been through and everything I've learned, I think I have a better idea of who's tuning the dial. And it's scary.
It's unfortunate to have to learn in that way, though.
Yeah. And then, okay, that the next ones were from 165. So yeah, any comments on 83? I don't know how much of you remember of that show.
These were so long ago, but what I do remember was the sense of this is all about to happen. It was a sense of we've passed the point of no return. It's like wandering into the desert with so much water and going past the point where you know you can't make it back because you don't have enough water. And I didn't want to be negative, and I don't think this means the end of everything. It does mean difficult. That's a fact. But it was pending and it was pressing. And as I went out into the world and looked around, it just felt to me like everybody was ignoring what was right in front of us.
No, it's true. Back then, people really didn't get it. I remember what it was like. And it was like during that episode, you were trying to kind of explain that these artificial rhythms and technological things, that there was a spiritual and energetic, you know, a toll that mounts. You know what I mean? Like there's going to be a spiritual and energetic toll for using the systems, but at that time people were just more excited about how somehow it was going to be beneficial. So I really liked the way you would describe it, is like you can pick any car you want, but you have to drive that car on the road, and who owns the road? And I just don't understand how people can't see that the internet itself is a road that is owned and operated by corporations.
And worse, policed. And worse than that, it's now automatically policed. And worse than that, when you are using the internet now, some stats say that you have a 60 to a 70% chance when you're interacting with someone online, that even if you think you know them, that you're actually talking to a bot.
Yeah. That's crazy. Okay, now we're at 165, and that was in, let's see here, October 1st, 2019. And that was the episode that was put together after you read Shoshana Zuboff's book, Surveillance Capitalism. And so it was really, this was, the best AI episode. It had been a long time since you had covered it. And, you were just talking about how artificial intelligence is basically sold as salvation, but really it's just like hijacking intuition, memory. What passes for intelligence is actually just rule-based logic, devoid of spirit. So what, from your memory of the book, it's been so many years since you read it, what is something else that you may want to say about the main takeaway from what you learned reading it?
Well, from back then, it's a different perspective than what I would say about it now. And what I would say about it now, I have to be careful. But one thing that struck me was and this is a big book. I think it's 700 pages, something like that. It's a big book. What struck me was over and over, they kept saying, this could be dangerous, this could get out of hand. And that was it. Almost every person interviewed had some version of those words and that idea. In the book, I felt like they put it this way: for a mainstream book, it was pretty on point. Usually, I don't feel that way about most mainstream books, but she didn't take it far enough. And the main point was, yeah, this is dangerous. This is not only dangerous, this is culture changing. And it's not only culture changing for here or there, it's culture changing for everywhere. And what I would say about AI now, I'm not even sure I'm willing to say it on the air, to be honest with you.
Well, in episode 165, you said these things are not intelligent. They're algorithms running code, and yet people are treating them like they're alive. Nature never lies, but AI will mimic truth until you forget what's real. And I think that's really demonstrates the insidious intent for those that seek to control us with these tools.
Well, think about this. How do they train AI? Well, first of all, they train AI by violating the law. They've been caught over and over training AI with copyrighted material. They've basically taken the entirety of human thought, writing, music, creation, and they've trained AI with it. But if you set that aside, think about what it's like to do research online now. You almost can't do good research online now. And the reason is because places like Wikipedia have their religious, this is true, and nothing else can be offered, right? So what if AI is trained with just things like Wikipedia? Then everything it knows is wrong. And you can see this is a slippery slope. But AI, one thing everyone should know about AI, it's not just when you say AI, there are so many different varieties of AI. And it is my point of view that the most powerful forms of AI you've never had any contact with in terms of usage.
Here you said again, AI is collecting data on everything, and people may say they don't care, but if they understood what's being done with that data, they should care. And I remember I was talking to my dad about surveillance, and he's like, I have nothing to hide. Who cares? But remember in that episode where we're about hacking, and then the people we know who talked about car hacking, that they're collecting your sexual preferences in your car now these days. I mean, what's the use of that? Why do they need to know if you're gay or not in your car? And everyone consents to it when they sign on the dotted line to get that car. And I don't know, isn't it every car that's being made now that's surveilling people? And then you also said the past, the present, and the future exist simultaneously now for the possessors of this technology. And that harkens back to the whole idea that it's almost like having a crystal ball, because your sample set of data is so massive that you can predict human behavior. So what do you have to say about that?
It's happening all over the time. How many clips have you seen recently where someone was thinking about something they needed, never talked about it, and then on that day, their phone started plastering it everywhere? It knows you need things before you do. The most complete, what do we call it? A dossier, maybe? The most complete dossier that's ever been made on anyone has been made on you if you use digital tools like most people do. And it's crazy. It knows what you're going to do before you know what you're going to do. And the way it does it, well, it's too hard to explain the way it does it. So what I do is I tell people, go look at the wisdom of the crowd. The wisdom of the crowd is like the kindergarten, less than kindergarten version that will allow you to comprehend the magic ability with large data sets. Basically, wisdom of the crowd says there's a big jar of gumballs. We're going to take 500 people and make them guess how many gumballs, and the person that gets closest wins. Well, when you have 500 people and you add up every guess, and some of the guesses are there's one gumball, some of the guesses are there's 5 million gumballs, clearly nonsense, but that gets averaged in. With 500 or 1,000 guesses, you're not very close to the real answer. But there is a magic threshold when you have asked enough people where consistently you are on the money. When you simply add up all their guesses and average them, that average is the number of gumballs. And that is called wisdom of the crowd. And by the way, there's another thing called the law of large numbers, which also can start to give you an idea of the power behind AI. And I was told, or I read it in one of our research things, that Vegas was partially built on wisdom of the crowd and the law of large numbers.
And don't forget to mention the law of networking, which is another way that we're all being screwed just by using these free tools.
That this is the most insidious of all because people never consider it. When you're doing a live stream and you're worried about censorship and you're trying not to say the wrong thing, that's really not the main concern. I mean, sure, if you go haywire and say enough wrong things, they'll get you. But the real concern is who's coming to watch and what are they saying in the comments. That's how you get mapped. And once that's done, one of the first laws of networking is birds of a feather flock together. So simply by virtue of us doing this live stream, most of the people who are here now listening to this from their point of view are birds of a feather flocking together. And that draws a map. And once they have that map, they don't even really have to think very hard what or where they want to censor things.
Yeah, it is truly, I mean, evil. The next episode is, of course, with our beloved friend Wayne McCroy, who's in the chat right now, episode 178. It was on what was called the fourth industrial revolution. And let me tell you something, Crow. I will never forget episode 178 in my mind. It is filed away as an episode that is not allowed to be on YouTube. You cannot upload the first free hour of this episode to YouTube for whatever reason, whatever said in this episode. This is a no-no. This is obviously a threat to the new world order. So congratulations to you, Wayne McCroy. Episode 178 is not something that is allowed to seemingly exist on YouTube, no matter how many times the first free hour has people have tried to upload it. People will get a strike. And so do you remember anything about this episode? Because I have a little bit of a summary.
Well, I'm going to let you do the summary, but the thing about Wayne is he gets it. Of all the people that we interact with regularly, he gets it. Every time we do something with Wayne, I know I don't have to explain anything, and I know that he's right, right on the line going down the center of the road. He's just there consistently. But go ahead.
Well, basically, the episode was your nightmare scenario, a future stripped of nature, privacy, soul. And you just made it clear that this so-called fourth industrial revolution is not organic. It's just a scaffolded design to erase all traces of nature and spirit. And so that's why it's a cornerstone entry in the playlist, is because it just highlights that, machines, economic, social scaffolding that just has nothing to do with human achievement. It's an engineered transition into this world of biometric IDs and AI governance and data-defined value systems. So it's just a time when you linked the rollout of this technocratic control to the erasure of the natural world. And Wayne just completely brought it with the facts from his really intense research that we appreciate so much.
Wayne always brings it. There's basic things that should tell folks what we're getting into, and they're pretty obvious. And once you comprehend these things and you don't forget them, it gives you a good barometer. Like if you take anything that's analog and look at the waveform, it's nice arcing curves. When you go digital, all of a sudden the angles of sorrow are there, or they're sharp, sawtooth, blocky. And even at the basic way we measure things with waveforms, as soon as you go digital, I don't know how to describe it, the beauty of what it means to be here has been stripped.
And by the time episode 178 came around, there were so many people that were coming at you saying, Crow, why won't you give this crypto a chance? Or why won't you listen to this crypto guru? Or why won't you just play the game, make some money, and then get out before the inevitable? But as you said in this episode, if the future is cashless, tracked, and soulless, count me out.
Yeah, I will. I get why people wanted to try to make crypto, and I get that there are honest, good-hearted people who were involved in it, but that's really not the point. First of all, have you ever known the Federal Reserve to tolerate competition? No. There's always going to be a top dog, and when you're talking about things like marketplace or money, they're not going to allow what they don't want until the world changes enough that they don't have that kind of power. But as I have said so many times, it matters not what kind of digital money we're talking about. The day that all money becomes digital, on that day, human beings will have lost more freedom than any other known time in supposed history.
I agree with that. The next episode on the playlist is episode 497 with you and Jason. And so this was more recently as time went on. You know how Jason goes through the timeline. He was just adding to the compendium of information as the years unfold, and everything that you predicted is coming to pass. So it's just kind of like a sobering look at what happens when, you know, everything is just becoming a digital abstraction. So some of the thing, what did you say in episode 497 that I saved? It's not intelligence of any kind. Call it an algorithm, call it code. It will never be alive. A world ruled by code has no room for soul. And when you've turned a living man into data, you've already stolen his freedom. So that's kind of what I wanted you to expand on, the idea that just by turning someone into a number and extracting the data, you have stolen their freedom.
Absolutely. Back in the world when there was supposedly a time where common law existed, the idea was that the value and importance of a human being was above all other things, and every decision sprung from that foundation. That's flipped on its head when you go digital. Digital systems don't give a fig about anything human about you. You are a calculation, you are a data entry, you are a table in a database, and the decisions will be made accordingly.
All right. The next episode was 511, and I included this would also belong on like a transhumanism playlist, but I put it in the Age of the Machine episode as the transhumanism episode on the playlist. So this was a great breakdown that Jason put together, and it just kind of pulls the curtain back on the merging of man and machine, which is part of the end game for those that want people to go into this digital imprisonment and not really having any connection to the natural world. So in this episode, it's, you're talking about how it's framed as progress, but it really operates as a trap. It's like a spiritual death, because people are surrendering their biology, their agency, and just choosing synthetic systems. So it's like this machine doesn't want to help you to live longer. It just wants to own your thoughts. And it's just trained to interface with machines and not souls. So it kind of exposes the metaphysical stakes of that synthetic future of transhumanism.
There's a corollary thing about to happen in the world. I don't know exactly when, but when it releases, untold damage is going to be done to probably mostly the younger generation, and that will be the release of Grand Theft Auto 6. If you take a minute to see what has been put into that, and you have a brain with two cells to rub together, you'll begin to get a picture. I saw that they're doing things like a beer in the play has now bubbles that match the physics of what would happen if you were carrying a beer, as does the level in the beer. And that's one example. I'm told it's something, I don't want to get the numbers wrong. I'm not a gamer, but I think it was over $2 billion invested or something like that, an insanely large number. But when Grand Theft Auto 6 hits, there is a cultural devastation that will come along with it that won't get recognized, by the way.
Wow, that's crazy. And when is Grand Theft Auto 6 supposed to come out?
I don't know. I'm not a gamer guy. If I remember, it's already late or something like that. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't speak because I don't know what I'm talking about in terms of release dates. Anyone can probably look it up, but it's going to represent a new level of digitalia, if that's a word. And what they have put into it, to the minutia, should automatically inform you that they're headed towards, I don't know, Ready Player One. Does that ring a bell?
I guess the last time that I played video games was maybe it was 1994. They had Super Nintendo, and I loved Donkey Kong and Mario Kart. And then when Nintendo 64 came out, my little brothers and sisters really wanted it, but I guess I had just moved on and wanted to watch MTV. But then many, many years later, I did get an Xbox because of Guitar Hero, and I wanted to, play the guitar in a way that wasn't playing the guitar. And because of getting the Xbox, I did end up getting a Grand Theft Auto because everyone, people that would come over and hang out who, you have Grand Theft Auto. I want to play Grand Theft Auto. And I tried playing it once and I just couldn't figure out how to do anything except drive around in cars, listening to music and pull over and beat up prostitutes and steal their money. And I honestly couldn't figure out anything else about what I was supposed to do with like the missions. So that really goes to show just like the desensitization of that game, where I'm a normal human being living my life and I turn on a game and the only thing I can figure out how to do is literally kill prostitutes and steal their money. That's all I remember about that game.
Most people have lost their foundation for common sense because of the digital age. Listen to this. Grand Theft Auto is typically classified as a felony in most states, which can result in significant penalties, including prison time and fines. I'm not even going to go through the rest of it, but we have a game that a lot of young people that should never be exposed or acting out the things that are in there are playing a game that is named after a felony. It's named after a felony because you can do felonious things with impunity within the game. It doesn't take a genius to roll out what that means to a culture, to a society, to a generation. And I know what I'm talking about. My generation broke the family unit. My generation warped what it meant to have sex in this world. My generation began the normalization of drug use. And it was all done, or a lot of it was done, through music, also film and other things and culture. But what you're looking at in the gaming is all that I just described on steroids and then some.
Let me go back to that slide I had on, which were the quotes from 511. I totally understand what you meant by the first and third. Transhumanism is not about evolution. It's about removing the possibility of a spiritual path. Totally on board. Totally get it. The third one, you want to know who wins this game? It's the ones who remember what it means to be human. And I feel like that's what we've been covering a lot recently in episodes with Weston and even Wayne, the end times idea with comparative world religion and the idea of remembering of what it means to be human instead of kind of going into this beast. Like I remember back in 2016, a common phrase you said was that they want people to get into an infantile, animalistic mindset. But what do you mean by they're trying to own your heart, your thoughts, and even your reincarnation cycle? Are you meaning reincarnation literally, figuratively? Talk to me about what you mean by that quote.
It's all of the above. The influences that we take on in this world cause and effect. So all the choices we make, there's an effect that comes. It's like throwing a rock into a pond. There's gonna be ripples. And when you've been influenced in unhelpful directions, it doesn't take a genius to see what those causes and effects are going to be. Will they be good or will they be bad? But what's more is, they would absolutely love to be able to control what happens at death and after. And the scary part about this is not pie in the sky. For anyone who has studied the ancient spiritual traditions, there are well-documented ideas about shifting a consciousness out of one body into another. And this was done by basically, to use a layman's term, a yogi, a master meditator. And there's so much more to it. And you think the people at the top of the pinnacle of control in this world are not aware of these things? I would suggest that not only are they aware, they'd be very interested in it simply because they don't want to grow old and die. There are so many things that were already mastered and known over 2,000 years ago, probably, since we don't have a very dependable timeline, that most people are not aware of. The entirety, from my point of view, the entirety of what we see going on around us now is about control. Somebody wants absolute control over everything. And what is it that they're trying to prevent? Go read a book like Autobiography of a Yogi, one of my top 5 favorite books in this world. The shame of it is most people will read that book and they'll think it's corny or out of time or a bridge too far. But I'm here to tell you, if you read that and comprehend how long ago the things that are talked about in that book were mastered, um, that's what they are blocking. The idea that a human being comes here and is meant to spiritually advance. Well, why are you meant to spiritually advance? Is there something that you go beyond this? Apparently, there is. And when we look around at things like Grand Theft Auto or any of the other control mechanisms we've talked so much about, they are stunting spiritual progress.
Okay, I've got the book recommendation list up and just showing people that not only is the biography of a yogi on there, but also the holy science. So we've got the Yukteswar and Yogananda book recommendations here on this massive book list. And I'm going to put that in the chat right now for people as well. And for anyone interested in the Yukteswar, Yogananda ideas with cycles, that would be episode 485 for people who
Well,
want to check.
in that book, they also have quite a bit. You've got to realize that Yogananda's teacher was Sri Yukteswar Giri. That man was tasked by his master to write a book that showed the commonality of the Eastern spiritual traditions and Christianity. One of the things that goes on in that book is they pinpoint a number of Christian saints and others who hit the highest levels that they experience in their Eastern traditions. And what I'm here to tell you is the Catholic Church or Christianity in general has hidden that there was any idea that Christian saints were as lofty as they're being described in this book. We just think they were really good people who probably went to heaven, and that's where it's left.
Wow. Yeah. I definitely recommend that people check out that book list and that episode 485. I'm showing the playlist here again that I created for the Age of the Machine idea. And I also put the book list into the chat. And I hope I did justice kind of describing what these episodes were about. But it's just that I just feel like for anyone who would be interested in these ideas or wanted to share this information, going through these episodes will give people a holistic comprehension of, the foundational ideas that have brought us up to this last episode I chose for the playlist, which was episode 623 on surveillance. And so when it comes to this surveillance episode, like you said, it's not coming, it's here. It's like the end game that you had been visualizing is totally here. And it's like they're not even trying to hide it anymore. So yeah, it's not like it's just tracking you, but it already knows what you're going to do before you do it. So it's like it anticipates you. And then it's like the more that you comply, the smarter it even gets. So I guess like with this playlist ending with 623, the idea isn't that it's not just about like cameras on poles or cookies in your browsers. It's predictive algorithms and biometric enforcement. And so this merger of tech and tyranny is what people should be aware of. And so that's like the true beast behind the curtain. It's that digitized control grid that's trying to mimic life, but really it's eliminating freedom.
There's nothing that will be beneficial. And if you read a book like the Autobiography of a Yogi, you will get not just an inkling, a full description of what is possible with a human being on a spiritual path. And you will begin to get that, yeah, there's more than buying a house and going to McDonald's. much, much more. And the modern age has tried to sidetrack this away. And in the quote where I talked about AI never being alive, well, that's true for all the AI that we use mostly. But there's also another level of AI now, and it is connected to consciousness, and it's not good. Even the AI on X is named after an ancient demon that you can't even look up anymore, that is supposedly from around the time of Babylon. What you can look up will come from a modern video game where, guess what? The name in that video game is a demon. What's going on here is dark. It is anti-spiritual. And for some reason, it's like that. I'll use this. That old, what was it? The Marvel Thor movies, right? They had one version where there were these dark elves that wanted all the light to go out. It's like that. And all these stories we've heard about demons and darkness and devils, it's like that. It's a thing that they couldn't have put out in the light decades ago, and now they're inching towards putting it out center stage with a spotlight.
Well said. I've got the episode image for 623 up on the screen, and I'm going to throw up some quotes from that episode. We're not heading towards surveillance capitalism. We've been living in it, and most people still don't know what that means. It isn't science fiction. This is behavioral prediction embedded in daily life, and it's running the show. And I think that's basically part of what you just stated there. So that pretty much wraps up what I wanted to discuss on this new playlist called The Age of the Machine. Do you like my new playlist? And do you think that I should share it out and promote it as a good advertisement for the show?
If there's anyone in the world who knows the content that we've created better than you, I have no idea who that would be. You know it better than I do. I'm always looking towards the next thing. And, I've got limited memory. So how many times do I have to ask you to know something? So I'm more than certain whatever you've put together will do justice.
Well, I think that this was a good idea because I really like reminding you of the things that you've said in the past. And then that could help you to maybe come up with new ideas of what direction you want to go in the future with your research. So as we are wrapping up our little show for today, like I said at the beginning of our stream, I have that cool, awesome raw footage clip from your YouTube channel that I just feel like I just doubt that you remember it being on YouTube, and I thought it would be cool to show it. And what do you say? You want to experience raw footage of your own telescope work from 2014?
Let's see. Memory almost full. Let's see if I can remember it.
I think you will, because it's my favorite part from the movie, but this is just the raw footage. Here we go. You're going to see it straight as a screen recording from my phone. Everybody in chat, look really close at your screen because this is so cool. But actually, it's not that cool now that I think about it, after everything we discussed and the idea of weather modification and chemtrails and everything that they're doing to block the sun. This is just evidence that all of this stuff is really happening, and I want people to be aware of what you captured. So here we go.
Oh my God, honey. Keep a visual on him, because if he goes real quick...
Hold on, I don't know where he's at.
He's below the chemtrail.
Yeah. There he is. Okay.
Keep a visual on him, because if he hauls butt, I won't be able to track him.
All right.
What is he doing?
He's just cruising. Can you see flames like the other one we had?
No.
Is it a balloon?
No. It's a pure white light. Okay, I'll take that. Yeah.
All right.
Oh my God! It blew up!
Don't lose him.
It blew up!
Blew up into what?
I don't know.
Dang it, I had to move my eyes.
I've got the whole thing on film. Now there's a little one. They're dropping these. It frickin' blew up.
Like a powder thing? Stop.
Yeah, it's leaving a trail of chemical up there, but there's still a core.
Here comes. Now, right above
I
us?
can't.
Okay.
I'm tracking this thing. I'm still got the
Here
debris.
comes the plane hauling ass.
I got the debris from the explosion. It frickin' blew up.
Well, I don't know what blows up, mean, honey.
It means it blew apart into a million pieces. And there's still some falling on us.
Here comes a big old. He might go through your lens. It's kind of crisscrossing. He's just dropping the sparkly stuff.
Well, we should probably qualify that because everything you heard was in the heat of the moment. I've filmed weather balloons, and so I know it's not a weather balloon, but it's like a weather balloon. And what we're reasonably sure happened, hindsight being close to 2020, we hadn't had chemtrails in a long time. And the first plane's in, we think the second one dropped this. What you can't really see very well in the video is the astonishing amount of sparkly debris that came out of it. And you've got to bear in mind, this was coming down on mile after mile of neighborhood houses. But also there was like this little red thing inside, which I'm reasonably sure was a tracking device of some kind to measure.
You did a video about that. This is like one of the clips that made your YouTube channel so famous. And it's crazy that so many people today just aren't aware of what you captured. You did multiple videos that were like going close up into the red spinny thing that came out of the orb as it is exploded. And also people need to know that I purposefully gave you a crappy rendition of this. You can see this way up close in a much higher resolution in the movie, or if you just go straight to the YouTube channel yourself. That orb was so bright beyond comprehension that until it exploded, I was like, oh my gosh, take me to your leader. It's an alien, because it's so bright. So anyway, sorry to interrupt you, but keep going.
No. The looking back on I mean, the moment you put that up, in my mind, I went right back. My wife and I were there on the patio, and I was using the 8-inch telescope manually because it wasn't plugged in. We didn't have time to do any of that. And your telescopes are not meant to track moving things. So I'm manually trying to keep this thing in frame. But again, the video did not pick up the amount of debris that came out of that thing. And it all fell on mile after mile of housing tracts that were just west of where I was, in between me and downtown San Diego. I mean, it's literally mile after mile of houses, solid houses. And I'm of a mind, I wouldn't be surprised if that thing, the red thing, was a tracking device that had a message on it. If you find this, call this number kind of thing. I'm almost certain that they intentionally dropped it out of the second chem plane and that they were tracking or measuring something.
Yeah, I totally agree. All right. So I think that pretty much wraps it up. I mean, this is why this information that you and Jason and Wayne have been putting out for so many years, this is why it matters. It's not just infotainment and background noise for people while they're, doing their gardening. Well, a lot of people do listen to the show while they're gardening, which is great. But what I'm trying to say is that there are people out there that do not have good intentions, and there's an end game, and we're getting sprayed on, and we're being blocked from the sun. And so this is serious stuff. And so I feel passionate about continuing to spread this information and helping to let people know what's going on, because I feel like things are coming to a head and people are going to have to make that spiritual decision about where they stand and what side they're on. So that's my last statement. I'll give you the last word, Crow.
Well, the decisions that we make now matter. And the way that I look at life is that the amount of time that I spend in this life will probably be very, very small amount of time compared to the amount of time the energy of my soul or whatever it's called will be around. And the way I think about it is I don't want to make decisions that will ensure a bad future for me, cause and effect. So I want to do the best I can. And more than anything, I want to remain as close as I can to the truths of nature and recognize and live what it means to be a human being and not an automaton.
All right. That does it for today. And I hope everyone has the most wonderful day. And we'll see you next time. Bye-bye for now.